What time's that?
I was gonna start it with "Hello, Peter." I didn't want to do pizza time.
All
I
right.
was trying to be more relevant. All right, well, we've wasted it now.
It's bad. Well, we can just cut this and just do it again. No,
No,
never
no, we got to
mind.
continue. We got to continue from this. We've decided that we're starting this. See, this is why I left for those weeks because we weren't on the same page, and
We
I
were
think
gonna
this my
talk about Hello
comeback
Peter.
intro, my comeback intro has proved it.
Well, I think the problem
How out
was
of
you
sync we
didn't say
were,
you
but
were
we'll
gonna
just have to
do that
go
with
on
the
with it.
intro.
Well, yeah, I wanted to be spontaneous with it because I did the intro. I forget that I guess you've been doing the intro, but Raimi Trilogy.
Yeah, we've teased it plenty of time, and specifically for you, it's more of a ritual every year. A ritual.
Um, yeah, well, it was a ritual until I kind of did it twice last year, and
You
I got
sort
a
of drain it.
message a little bit. What
Mm.
I got a message from a mate of mine just saying, because I put it on my story, and I was like, bro, I don't know, like, if anyone has said this to you, but you really need to stop watching Spider-Man.
Why? Just because
And
you
it was a
watch
bit
it every
of,
year?
well, this was the second time that year,
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah,
but I had an excuse. My housemate hadn't seen the first two, and he wanted to watch them.
yeah.
What am I going to do? Not watch the Raimi trilogy if it's on?
Mm. True.
Yeah. So why are we talking about the Raimi trilogy?
Well, mainly because obviously we got the first trailer for No Way Home, which features spoilers if you didn't see it. Some characters from that franchise or that little trilogy of it.
Character.
True, but some were also other ones were teased and
Yeah. I wish they didn't
allude
tease
to
it so
so many.
much. Well, let's quickly, before we even jump into the Raimi trilogy,
Yeah.
let's talk about who was the current characters who are apparently coming back.
Hmm.
So, confirmed we have Alfred Molina.
Yeah,
Um,
Jimmy Fox.
pretty much confirmed we have Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah. Oh, do you mean Raimi trilogy first? Okay.
No, we're not. Well, I was given a bit of a stern talking to before we started to
Yeah.
not bring up anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
To
That's
keep
true.
it direct.
Yeah, yeah. Because then
So,
we'll just talk about all of them. Yeah.
so we have Willem Dafoe,
Hmm.
and I think Maguire's pretty much back.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And
We don't know.
also,
He is.
no, but
Sandman.
yep, same actor as well.
He's the. Yeah, he's also apparently
Mm,
back.
that should be good to see. Because, well, I think those are like obviously the three characters if you were going to bring back from that trilogy.
Well,
You
because
know.
also because of James Franco being James Franco.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
do that now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also the fact that Tobey Maguire and James Franco never got on.
No.
They did not like each other. um,
But neither was that big of a needle mover either.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Jesus.
Like the Raimi trilogy success was not built on Tobey Maguire at
No,
all.
no.
I enjoy him in it. I just
Mhm.
thoroughly enjoy the films.
Mhm.
I think he gets a bad rep.
Mm.
Rap as Spider-Man. Well, everyone complains about everyone when it comes to Spider-Man. No one's happy.
Well, then there's
Like
obviously
people
he's a bit of a dick
in real
in
life.
real life. Yes,
Oh yeah, he's apparently
like if you've
not
ever
great.
watched Molly's Game, the Michael Cera's character's entirely based off of Tobey Maguire. Like he's such a dick.
He was apparently not great.
But I think the best way we can talk about these is sort of one at a time, if you know what I mean.
Just
Start
go
with the
through
first
them.
one.
So I'm
Yeah. What would
gonna
we like?
throw out the elephant in the room here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a high chance we're gonna repeat a lot of points made by Cosmonaut.
Perhaps.
If you want the best breakdown of those films,
And
probably
a
go
nice
for
comedic
his
way.
videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has quite a good breakdown of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think all his complaints are valid, but I
Mm.
mean, you're
I
sacrificing
think obviously
that
he
for
has
comedy.
that sort of like I give him even if I disagree with him, something like he's just doing this to entertain. To be fair, sometimes, you know.
Yeah, so, but if you want to kind of remind yourself of the films,
Mm.
other than watching, it's probably the best way to do it.
Mhm.
Because these films are a mixed bag
That's
in every
exactly what I
kind
was
of
going
way,
to say, yeah.
both in film quality and also public perception of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place.
Mm.
And I think, we'll at least try and straighten it out, because there's really two sides of the camp.
Yeah.
There's one half who adore these films and think that the first two are on par with, like, The Dark Knight. What other... Well, that's the only superhero film that people really hold
Pretty
on
much,
a
yeah. That's
pedestal.
what I was going to say. I was just like, I'm
Deserves
pretty
it.
sure that's kind of it.
Yeah, because there's ones, some people hold on pedestals, like Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
We lean more towards the Schneider films,
Mm-hmm.
but collectively it's usually The Dark Knight that people put on that high of a level.
Yeah, because it's the one that's kind of like not really, what would the word be for it? Sort of like, no, you would a lot. They're just renowned for being a really good trilogy that everyone sort of almost agrees on unanimously. If you know what I mean?
Well, at least with the middle one.
Yeah, yeah,
But we're not talking about that. But that was and then there's another camp who think that these are absolute dog shit,
mm-hmm.
and it's just cheesy pieces of shit from the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really neither. Let's face it.
Yeah. I think they're an amalgamation of both. I feel, if you know what I mean. Like
What?
each one has their own aspects of both camps. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. So if we go through them, I think one's objectively the worst, but is probably also the most enjoyable.
Do you feel the first one?
I think it's so enjoyably bad, the first one.
Mm.
But so we'll go through it one at a time, because I'll get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start. Spider-Man 1, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire, came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. No, 2002, sorry. 2002.
Okay, so it's 2002. It's so of the time. It feels like it was made in the mid-90s.
Yeah. Well, it is just a collection of that period,
Era.
you know.
It was really... So it's the... Superhero films were definitely going through a different kind of phase. It was post-Blade, post-death of the... post the death of the Batman series.
Yeah.
We hadn't had a Superman film since the 80s?
It was sort of the rise of Marvel and the fall of DC. That kind of a period.
Yeah. Well, because we had Catwoman from DC, they had Steel.
Yeah.
They
the
had a
only
lot of
90s Superman
shitty
film.
Yeah, they had a lot of shitty films, but we had X-Men coming out. They had Blade, Ang Lee's Hulk, that kind of Daredevil. Like, this is that kind of era we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's where, but they were also kind of very late 90s, 2000s kind of
Corniness.
But let's say grunge was going out, so it was becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
So they kind of had a bit of that about them. Fuck, I'm going on a tangent here. I'm going on about Daredevil and X-Men now. Like Spider-Man is in between times is when they were trying to become cinema, trying to attach kind of good directors onto it, like Sam Raimi, but also weren't really given the respect or the kind of production that, let's say, Nolan was given on his films, and especially what the MCU's given now, or the Suicide Squad gone. Like, these were, like, they weren't really given that at the time. And you can see it because the effects in the film haven't aged well.
No. And some of the stuff they've actually did sort of were the beginnings of revolutionizing sort of trying to film in that sort of, superhero films, if you know what I mean. Like some of the techniques that they came up with, even camera work and stuff.
You just have to kind of remember, superhero films were not blockbusters at this point.
No.
So the last one that kind of was a blockbuster were probably the Burton Batman films.
Well, X-Men did surprisingly well.
Well, it did surprisingly well, but like it wasn't a cultural phenomenon.
No.
Whereas Spider-Man kind of became one. They weren't really expecting it to be like what were the big blockbusters at the time, especially at the time the Raimi films were coming out, was Lord of the Rings. Like, that was kind of the blockbuster role that's now being filled by the MCU. You can even see it with Spider-Man getting the Christmas release spot this year, which was always, that was always kind of Lord of the Rings spot.
Well,
Star Wars as well. Star Wars was the blockbuster as well. These were the blockbusters at the time. So superhero films, they definitely weren't seen on that level.
Aquaman. I always throw that in when people say
So like,
Christmas blockbusters.
yeah. So it was a cringy mess, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I think even cinematography
boy,
wise,
do
you
I
can
enjoy watching. It looks cheap. It looks so
'cause,
cheap.
like when you've seen the sequels, it has that letterbox top black bars aspect ratio wise, which looks cleaner. If you know what I mean, like it looks more professional. But I don't know. First
It
one
looks almost
does look very
sitcom-y.
plain. It does, doesn't it? It looks like a
Scenes
made for
where
TV
it's,
movie almost.
Dialogue scenes especially.
Yeah.
Just have there's no kind of intensity to it. There's no life to it. A great scene is, an example is, midway towards the end of the film, we have the big confrontation between Spider-Man and Goblin on the rooftop.
Yeah.
But it's just a verbal confrontation. But it's not filmed with any form of drama.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a steady shot of
Yeah.
Goblin just standing there.
And it does
in
look
his
like Power
awkward suit.
Rangers.
It looks like Power
Sorta.
Rangers, and
Yeah.
I think because also I don't know if it came down to CGI budget as well. Because like if you even compare it to Spider-Man 2, I think the closest scene would be when Doc Ock throws the car through the cafe.
Yeah.
It's like it's shot kind of more intensely, and it's not just like a steady cam of both of them just kind of blankly looking at each other having a normal conversation.
And it's integrated
Like Doc
really
Ock's,
well
there's destruction everywhere.
Yeah.
He's up on his claws. He's standing big. You can see Peter's beginning to get that fire in him. There's like a different kind of, there's different kind of little cues and different kind of bits of drama, and that they just kind of learned to implement as they went along.
Well, I think it's mainly a fact that more so in the first film, you look at a scene, you're like, that's a set.
Yeah, it looks
that is a
unbelievable.
set.
Like
You know
set.
what I mean? Like compared to like the second film, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, what's it?
I mean, second film
But
does
yeah, it
have
just feels
fun
more real.
aspects, but it feels more like, oh, this is a set. Like a lot of things are filmed within buildings and there's bricks and stuff. You know, whereas just everything about the first film, I'm like, oh, this just isn't a real place.
I'd even compare it. Even how they film with some locations are in both. Like, compare how they film The Bugle.
Yeah.
Like, in the first film, it's just kind of like, it's a set with just Jameson sitting at it. Whereas if you look at the second film, there's a lot of life kind of going on. You can see the background. It's just it is an office.
More like the Chris Reeves Superman films, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, where it's just like an office kind of environment going on.
Actually,
and there's life to it that we're not really paying attention to.
That's a perfect example. Spider-Man 2 and 3's like office scenes remind me more of the Chris Reeves Superman films, and the first Spider-Man film reminds me more of the Brandon Routh Superman Returns office, where it's just such a like weird set that it doesn't feel like, oh, this is where reporters go and stuff. If you know what I mean.
Well, Spider-Man 1's definitely, so we've kind of, actually I want to give Spider-Man a bit of credit. We'll get to this. Honestly, I just have so many thoughts on this film. I'm going to be a bit all over the place.
Well, I think
I'm going to keep it trying.
Yeah. We'll go through each one individually and then just throw out whatever we want about all three, if you know what I mean.
So if we take the first film, I hate the phrase, but people always kind of use it as it feels like a comic book.
Yeah.
Which isn't also necessarily true. It's what people think of when they think of comic books, which is the 60s Batman show.
Yeah, because there are some really good comics out there, like.
Yeah, when people think if it says it feels like a comic book, generally what they mean is it feels like the 60s Batman show.
Or just any kind of serial from that time.
Yeah, it feels like a serial.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like the old Flash Gordons, where it feels like something like that, where it's just like a big dramatic thing. There's no sense of reality to this. And you can see that in the way Spider-Man moves and the way he fights bad guys. Like, it's very dramatic. It's very kind of like big one shot and they're out. It's not that he doesn't... And it's very kind of stuntman-y, like you always say, like a Disney stunt show.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I enjoy it because...
Well, that was in complete intention, I feel. I don't think it was accident. I completely feel like that's exactly what they wanted to do with the first film, if you know what I mean. Like, even Raimi.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, maybe they were told to do that. I don't know. Obviously, this film had a long production. It was originally a James Cameron film. It was originally going to be
Michael
DiCaprio in it.
At one stage.
It was going to have two. It was going to be Doc Ock as the villain. Played by Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And of course that fell through, but if we won't go into here because it's not irrelevant, but it's worth to look to see how how the Raimi film came up, the Cameron film, because you can definitely see how it became it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
very different, but it's very similar at the same time.
Like even some of the like ideas that Cameron had, you can like
A
the
lot of them
bridge
ended up in it.
battle, for example.
I think a lot of the concept art was probably still used.
Yeah, just because you just kind of have to be right. We'll just use this because it's already there. It's kind of like George in the prequels, like we have so much concept there. We'll just kind of pick and choose, you know. But,
So it's probably just easier for that. There's not much to talk about.
No, not with the first one.
I think
anyways.
the thing that makes the first one so fucking good
is wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go repeat Cosmonauts jokes, so I'm not going to. But his points on Willem Dafoe in that film are some of the funniest things, and just him being like an idol sim.
Well, I think my only complaint with that Green Goblin, like I love the glider, perfect kind of glider. He did that very well, right? Outfit, fair enough, it's alright. The helmet is the only thing that sort of... I think if they resprayed it and it had more of a purple and green...
I think it could look good. If they did the kind of the pointy bit, I would have loved to throw some purple in that suit.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing, because it's just kind of too green.
So it was supposed to be a big, bulky suit, but Willem Dafoe wanted his own stunts. And he said he didn't like the suit for doing his stunts in. Yeah. So they slimmed it down, and that's why we have the kind of weird Power Rangers-esque suit. Which I think he looks really good when he's on the glider.
Yeah. Well,
when he's on the glider...
You could have just gone to his face and just painted it green and been like, fuck it, that's even more terrifying, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you had the... you saw the old concept art.
Yeah, where they had the...
or not the concept art, the animatronic.
Yeah, the animatronic. That is terrifying. Look,
it was terrifying, but I don't think it would have worked within the logic of the film.
No, it wouldn't make any sense.
It's just kind of being a battle suit.
Yeah. Oh, like I like the way they have the reasoning for the suit being there. I'm fine with, because it is a battle suit. It was like, oh yeah, army, all this kind of stuff, glider.
And this was before this was before we'll touch on the Amazing series where everything was Oscorp. So like, it was kind of okay. It was like, yeah, it's Oscorp tech. It's before everything was Oscorp.
Doc Ock was actually gonna have be like a wee secondary character, even have a cameo in the first film, but it was going to be like completely different. It was going to be like an Oscorp experiment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm kind of well, it was an Oscorp experiment in the second film.
Oh yeah, sure, yes, technically, but I mean like in that lab, if you know what I mean.
It was going to be deeply rooted in Oscorp.
Yeah. Where do you think why the other films kind of work, because they stray away from whole Oscorp?
Yeah, thing? Well, I know I heard. We'll get into it later. So, I want to wrap up with 2 points on this film. Both intentionally and unintentionally, it's fucking hilarious. Yeah. So when it's bad, just accept that it's bad and just have a laugh with it. Because it's honestly just the bad lines, the bad delivery. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And so there is some good stuff in there. So you're always kind of entertained, because it's either okay, quite good, or it's really bad, it's good. And this really comes into effect in the second one, which I'll get into.
Well,
and my second point is, which is my biggest criticism of the film, is in the final battle, where does he get the trident from?
Yeah, right, no, actually.
I've wondered this since I was a child. I was 1 year old when this film came out.
I never questioned that before.
Where does he get the trident from?
It's a good point. There was a deleted scene, or is it?
I don't know, because it's not. It doesn't come off the glider, because he doesn't have the glider.
It obviously wouldn't be in his suit, because it's fucking massive.
Yep. It's not like he summons it or something. It cuts away. It cuts to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It cuts back to the Goblin.
And then it cuts
and he has a trident. of him with a trident.
MJ, man.
He doesn't use he's never used this trident in the film.
That's a good point.
Like, it's not even like when I complain about the Transformers films, like where Optimus Prime is always pulling weapons off himself.
Yeah, it's like,
but, you know, he's a big
Transformer,
fucking
that's
robot.
fine,
You know,
yeah.
whatever. I can accept that a little bit, like that. But where does he get the
That's a
trident
good
from?
point. And that's practical too. It's really good practical trident. But
Yeah.
you have to question. Yeah.
Where did the trident come from?
Oh, it's not like his glider comes over and picks up, because the glider's behind the wall, as we know.
No, he doesn't.
Or
It's
no, he
not
doesn't
like
do that yet.
he was.
He doesn't do that yet. Yeah.
He's never had the trident
Yeah.
before in the film.
Yeah.
We've seen his weapon room.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
trident
There's
in
no
there in the
trident.
second film. He has swords and shit, which I don't think he ever even used.
Do you think that was actually Willem Dafoe's and he just pulled out in the day? And is that actually Willem Dafoe's trident? Euphemism.
I mean, we've heard stories
We
about
have heard
Willem Dafoe's
stories.
trident and it being unusually big.
Yeah.
But
Is that it? Is that why this is the only time we've ever seen it and it was disguised?
that was actually why they didn't use it in the film. That is actually Willem Dafoe's schlong has 3 prongs.
Yeah, it opens up like the sandworm from Dune.
I think that's all I have to say on the film. The score is really good, but I think the score in the second film is better. Danny Elfman does a great job in it. I think it's one of the most iconic superhero soundtracks ever, and it brings me back to my point on why I fucking hate the MCU on music, but I think I've gone over it at least 3 times already. So I'll leave it at that, but I just think the music's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think it's just so iconic.
I think something that's even better in the second one, because production-wise, everything's better. For a start, just everything's better production, and you can first scene you can tell straight away. Not even first scene, opening credits. You can just tell straight away from the opening credits, if you know what I mean. Because it's not something we talked about when we were talking about the first film, but I hate the opening credits of the first film because they haven't aged well. Whereas in Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, they have, but also it makes more sense because they recap the previous film. If you know what I mean?
It was just more visually.
And you have like Alex Ross drawings in it as well, which are just beautiful. I mean, they are just fucking phenomenal, those drawings. I like the second Spider-Man film, the opening credit is my favorite opening credits of the whole trilogy, just because it's something the third one does differently, which I'm fine with. You know, I like the fact that each opening credits still maintain the same sort of thing, but they all do it in a different way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what, something I just thought of there that we actually haven't had the luxury of in a while?
what?
Each of the Spider-Man series have actually had the same director for the whole franchise.
Yeah. It's kind of nice, isn't it?
We haven't had that on other franchises.
Not
That's
really.
popped into my
Very
head.
rarely if we have.
Yeah, like even
Nolan
Venom,
being
it
the only
seemed,
other
was a different
example.
director. Nolan,
Zach. For that trilogy.
Gone for Guardians.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, because we don't know if Patty Jenkins will be back for Wonder Woman. Really.
That's true. Probably will, but it's hard to tell. Who else? There must be more.
James Gunn for Guardians.
Yeah. Maybe that is it. Is that everyone?
Yeah, X-Men didn't have the same director.
Yeah. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
Only the second 2 Wolverine films had the same director.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. John Favreau needed the first 2 Iron Men.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it might happen with Black Panther.
Again, only 2.
Different directors.
Yeah. Thor again.
No, there has to be
different
another one.
director every time.
Notoriously Superman.
Yeah. The very same.
Doesn't.
Batman. Again, the same.
Yeah, the original Batman didn't.
Just 2 directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't. It's only really been Spider-Man that's consistently had the same director.
Yeah. It's kind of strange when I think about it. I never saw that.
Doctor Strange is another one. The director's not coming back. Sam Raimi.
Yeah. That's Straight. Well, he was gonna, but then he was fired for creative differences. I think he just didn't want to do multiverse, really. Or I think he wanted to do multiverse, but
off.
Huh?
I think. Well, I don't think he wanted to include. Well, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know. Anyways, that's a story for another
topic
time.
For when we actually
talk about Doctor Strange.
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Because we'll see how much of a mess the film is.
Yeah.
Or if it's really good.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
What are your thoughts?
I know Spider-Man 2. Not as good as The Dark Knight. Like, people hold it way too high.
It is my favorite.
And
of the trilogy, though.
I think it's had a lot of unfair comparisons to. People really unfairly. Well, people would hold it way too high because people really bash the Holland films, saying, shitting on them. Like, they don't tell good Peter Parker stories like Spider-Man 2. It's like, yep, Spider-Man 2 told a very good Peter Parker story, but we can also tell more than one Peter Parker story.
Yeah.
Like, I would almost argue that Spider-Man PS4 didn't really focus on the character of Peter Parker as much. And it more focused on him being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, it really focused on them being one the same. It didn't really create the divide, so I guess it kind of worked. But and I think that's one of the best Spider-Man stories we have.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree.
So, like, I just, like...
Even with his weird face.
Just because it's not about him losing his powers and struggling with getting a girlfriend.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be that. Well, I feel like it's one thing that this trilogy does sort of differently to, like, Tom Holland. Because Tom Holland's very oriented, right, you're in high school, right? You're a teenager, right? This one's more oriented to... Right, he's sort of in high school in the first one, but they don't really go into it too much. It's only the kind of like the first act, if you know what I mean. Then after that, you don't really see him in high school again or doing anything like that. He's just kind of trying to get jobs. Second one, third one, you see him more as an adult. You know, I know he's trying to be. I know they're trying to put him in college and stuff, but he's more of an adult in those films than just a college kid, in a way.
So I think a lot of that might have been just because Maguire was too old to be playing what they were doing, and it's so we've kind of just forgotten about a lot of the college stuff.
Yeah.
Because he seems almost like a mature student or doing like a master's or something, doing like this really fucking hard degree. And I think it's like, especially with how the other characters are, because like MJ's just a struggling actress. They're not really focusing on the college thing with her. Harry's a multi-millionaire running a big corporation. Yeah. So he's not really seen as being a young kid. Especially Peter doesn't live at home either. So he's kind of just like he's just supposed to be a young adult, and you don't really need to focus on the college stuff as much because he's not living in a dorm. He's not.
But that's kind of like why I feel it's not fair to compare them, because it's completely different characters, even though they're playing the same character. If you know what I mean. Like even all three Spider-Man. You know what I mean. They're all completely different, and I kind of like that they're all different. I do like the fact that they're not just trying to do this kind of samey kind of thing. You know. Yeah,
which an aspect I think. Well, I don't necessarily think directors got caught on it, but I think fans got caught on it. Yeah. Well, fans have gotten caught on it with Spider-Man, but they've gotten caught on it with like Batman and Superman a lot.
Oh yeah, like they have to be this
or they just
one thing.
They have to be Reeve or they have to be Bale.
Yeah.
I think we kind of fell into for a while. I think we're still in that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I think I think it's just whatever one people deem. Oh, this is the first one to do it. This is the way it has to be done. You can't have any other way.
Well, no, although Spider-Man now it's really weird because we're seeing a lot of love for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. A lot of people are really. We'll get into that later because
I think it's just that generation that grew up with it has grown up a bit. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm just wondering now because I guess we're in our 20s, like so. When I think of the Spider-Man films we grew up with, it was 1, 2, and 3. I was maybe 11, I think, when Amazing Spider-Man came out.
No, I was 12.
So like
you weren't 11.
So I was still a kid.
Or no, you were 11. Yeah, sorry. I forgot mixed up.
Yeah.
I
was still definitely a kid, but like I had 10 years of having those 3 movies on DVD and watching them.
VHS. Yeah.
I was like a dick, poor bastard. I had the big DVD. Actually, here's a funny story. Guess what my first Blu-ray was?
Go on.
Spider-Man 3.
Really?
Yeah, it was 2007.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, I'm going to talk about what's fucking relevant to the podcast, you big fool.
No, right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is a bit of a tangent. Why are you telling me this?
It's not a tangent. It's Spider-Man 3, because I got it, because I think we got it for Christmas the same year we got our PS3. It was Blu-ray
same logo.
Blu-ray.
Same font, sorry.
It just really got us in the mood.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about?
We're talking about
With
Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, we're talking about him being a young adult, and then
Because like,
I really like the stuff of just the world shits on Peter Parker.
well, I think this is one thing that a lot of superhero films don't take into consideration now. But I think what kind of makes the first two stand out in a way is the fact that in each film there's only one villain.
Yeah, I'd argue.
You know.
Well, there's two in the second one because Peter's his own villain.
Yeah, technically, but I mean like in terms of like antagonist.
I would argue a bigger antagonist. Well, no, because Doc Ock is supposed to represent what Peter could be.
Yeah.
Well, would become.
Yeah.
His little speech of intelligence isn't a privilege; it's a gift to be used for the betterment of mankind, good of mankind. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point. The whole thing is it's supposed to reflect Doc Ock's supposed to reflect Peter.
Well, I think that's why people draw comparisons to the Dark Knight. More
Could
so
be.
like, you know, the Harvey Dent and Batman's relationship.
Yeah, but people always forget about Harvey Dent when it comes to the Dark Knight.
That's true. Well, no, I think he's the second most memorable character in the film. First one being Heath Ledger. Obviously.
Yeah, but I think people more so focus on the comparisons between Batman and Joker than Batman and Dent.
Yeah,
Wrongly,
I find that weird
don't
because
get me
that's
wrong.
kind of the point.
It's just because people remember Joker.
Yeah. You know, I think
like-
everyone's fantastic now. Except Bale. Moving on.
Except, well, he's really good in that film.
We'll do a whole one on that. We'll do a whole one on that trilogy because I want to rewatch them.
Anyway, so it's quite a fun thing. Once again, I think the music's the best. Love that score.
Yeah.
Him and Kirsten Dunst had no fucking chemistry, even though they were writing.
Cinematography is brilliant. This time around.
Cinematography's brilliant.
Really good, like really good cinematography though. Like, there's
James
not
Franco's
really
an
any
arrogant
bad
prick.
shot. Oh yeah, that's true. But there's not any kind of like bad shot in that film. Oh no, fuck, there is.
CG shot at the end.
No, well, no, that CGI shot doesn't annoy me. Do you know the CGI shot when he has Mary Jane? He's climbing through the city. Remember after he grabs her from the cafe and that's very CG.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I'm thinking of the freeze frame.
No, don't shit on the freeze frame.
It's just, it was clearly done. You knew they weren't gonna do it.
It's clearly done because they just found it funny.
Yeah, it was clearly just done because you can tell because it's so fucking blurry.
Yeah. That montage makes me laugh. There's another thing. There's some dumb shit in this film.
Oh yeah,
There's some bad stuff
there
in
is
this
some
film.
bad stuff. I'm not gonna put this up
But
too high.
oh my god, is it funny?
Oh yeah.
I find it absolutely hilarious in every way. Any of those awkward. That's not really anything. That was just
but
all
do you want
sport.
to, I thought you want to tell your story.
All right, so it's not even really a story, is it? It's just the fact that I became obsessed with saying that for a while.
But
Oh no, I won't tell that because that's not that funny. That's just
okay.
That's just me speaking during a triple bill.
Fair enough.
But so we oddly associate that phrase with Star Wars more than Spider-Man. Just
I
'cause
know.
while doing a Star Wars marathon, I got really bored and just kept saying it to try and keep us entertained because we were like 8 films in and it was quite tiring. The power of the sun.
Yeah, because it was episode
And
7. you
keep in
started
mind,
doing
it wasn't a meme at this point. The Raimi trilogy was not the meme it was when we kind of fell in love with it. Because it's been a meme for a couple of years now. We were doing the yearly watch
This
of
is
it.
2018.
2017 is when we started.
No, I meant in terms of when we were watching Star Wars.
Oh yeah, so we started watching these films yearly
Summer
around 2017.
2018.
So, but anyway, so David, who's been on this podcast, me and another, we started watching these back in 2017. We do it about once a year. We haven't done it this year yet. We'll see. We might get it done. But then that's when the memes started about it. And one of the memes that was never made about was the line, "The power of the sun in the palm of my hand." And as soon as I started saying it, within it wasn't even a week. It was the next fucking day. We woke up and found memes with the power of the sun in the palm of my hand in it.
Everywhere.
And like, we sent in the group chat because a couple of us watching the Star Wars marathon. There's like maybe 7 of us there. Like,
I think even more,
and
maybe 10.
everyone was kind of like, "Nah, no way." Like, did you see this yesterday?
Yeah.
Like, nah.
I know.
We were saying it, and then it immediately became a meme.
Yeah, that was so funny.
And I hate it now because I always big up the Raimi trilogy, and now I'm almost coming across as a fake fan.
Mm.
Because now everyone loves the Raimi trilogy, but it wasn't popular when I did it.
Yeah. Well, I think the good thing about us being fans of this trilogy is not just we associate with our childhood and we watch it religiously, but the fact that we can enjoy these films in more ways than one.
I can accept the bad
Yeah.
factors of these films. Some people really can't accept that
Yeah.
these films, in some ways, are not very good.
Like, it's got to the point where I'll take the piss out of this film, but I'll be enjoying watching it, or I'll watch it. I'll be like, oh, I'm like really enjoying this, action, like, oh, this dialogue's like, oh, the characters are great, all this characterization is great. I can enjoy it for reading into a film, but also just completely take the piss out of it.
Well, I like the fact that you can have such great interactions between characters, such as the one at the end between Peter and Doc Ock, where Peter gives him the same speech that he gave him earlier in the film.
That's just great parallel, yeah.
But then the scene that they're actually paralleling, it's about him him telling Peter about the benefits of poetry.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Oh,
Like, it's in the same scene.
yeah. I mean, I think the visual effects. Yes, there is.
They've aged well for what they are.
Have aged well. There is ones that haven't, but they've aged well more than the first or third. Because I think
even some of the MCU films.
Yeah, because like this is the film I feel that it was a period of time where, and you saw it with even like Nolan's Batman Begins, where there was a perfect blend between CG, what you could do with CG, and practical effects. And like the more
they really did that with Doc Ock's claws,
especially because they had like 16 people. They had like four people per arm. If you know what I mean.
And they were puppets.
Yeah,
and they were really heavy apparently.
Oh yeah, they're massive though. If you see the behind the scenes, they're massive.
Yeah, it was. Wait, hang on. We forgot about the in between chapter of Spider-Man 1 and 2.
What?
Spider-Man the MTV series.
Was there one? I didn't know about this.
You know Spider-Man the MTV series? Because the first film was quite a cultural phenomenon at the time, like people got into it.
Spider-Man the musical.
That was later on.
Yeah.
No, this was in between Spider-Man 1 and 2. They made an animated series which was supposed to be a sequel to the first Raimi film.
Oh, right.
And it was Spider-Man the MTV series.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they did, they just didn't care because just like not enough people were. It had one season. It was CG animated in a time when shows really weren't CG animated.
Oh, I've seen this.
It was on MTV, and it starred Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man.
It looks
and it was
awful.
It's supposed to be set in between Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then it ends on a cliffhanger of him giving up Spider-Man.
Like, it genuinely does look like a video game. But not even a good video game at the time. It looks awful.
Yeah. Just often forgotten about as a piece of that storyline. But of course, it left off on a cliffhanger, which Spider-Man 2 doesn't pick up on. It's not relevant.
It's not relevant. Yeah.
But anyway, let's go back to Spider-Man 2, because if I didn't mention that now, we were never going to bring it up. But it was originally supposed to be a sequel, because it's set after Green Goblin dying and Harry holding resentment for the death of his Green Goblin, if I remember right, because I think they ran reruns of it on Cartoon Network.
Well, it's kind of weird, because there's been a lot of kind of like, not just towards the first one, but sequels to this kind of like trilogy, but in weird ways, but aren't canon, obviously. Like, you have like Friend or Foe.
I assume you're talking about Friend or Foe.
That's what I was going to talk about.
We'll get there after 3.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about a lot of the shit that happened after this trilogy.
Yeah, because you could talk about the games for ages as well.
Yeah.
But so Spider-Man 2, it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable film.
I enjoy it.
Very enjoyable. I enjoy it. Can't really say much. I enjoyed the good scenes in it. I enjoy the bad scenes in it. I enjoy the film. Don't go in expecting too much.
No, don't go in thinking Jesus Christ is going to change my mind.
Now, retroactively, is it the best MCU film?
Oh yeah, good point. I don't know, because I was meaning to try and do a list of my favorite MCU films, but I kind of feel like I want to rewatch the entire MCU at some stage.
I've been thinking about doing that, and I was like, I'll do chronological order. I got 15 minutes into Captain Marvel after watching First Avenger.
See, that's why you should
I'll
just
get
do
back to this at some point.
Iron Man first, yeah. Well,
I don't
I
really
feel
care.
like
No,
I'll do like a phase a week.
man, I couldn't
Maybe.
even do that anymore.
Maybe.
There's just some of those films I don't want to watch Dark World. I don't want to watch.
Yeah. Well, I do. Those are the ones that interest me the most. The ones I've seen the least. Like,
I
I
don't
want to
want to
watch
watch
Doctor Strange
most
again.
of.
I've only seen it
I've only
once.
seen that one. I don't want to watch most of Phase 1 because I've just seen it too many
Aye,
times.
religiously. I know what you mean, yeah. Yeah. Because it is the
Because
ones
I
everyone
was
kind
quite
of goes
young
back
when they
to.
came out, so I liked rewatching them. And
Hmm.
then there was a phase where it just felt like every fucking Saturday Iron Man was on E4.
Yeah.
Or Film 4, whatever which one it is. Just always is Iron Man 1.
Well,
So I've seen that quite a few times.
you didn't get to talk about behind. You remember the behind the scenes of Spider-Man 2?
I love that. I love that clip.
Brilliant.
So famously, Willem Dafoe was not supposed to be in this film.
Yeah.
And he just showed up to set because he saw they were filming it nearby, and he just felt like popping in to say hello.
Mm.
But it's not in the scene you think. It's not like he showed up and they filmed that scene of him in the mirror.
No.
That was arranged, I think, on that day, to
Yeah.
my knowledge.
'Cause it sets
I think
up
that's
the
when they
third
arranged to
film.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was planned, and maybe he just came. I don't really know.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna claim to know, but from what I heard, he wasn't in. He saw their film. He popped in, and it was like Raimi was just like he was familiar, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't like the way you're doing the scenes." I was like, "Look, I'm gonna show you how I want the scene done," and they like pulled back a curtain, and it was Willem Dafoe in the vest with attached to the claws,
With
acting out
really
the
long hair and the wind blowing.
Yeah, and it's just everyone just pisses themselves laughing at it.
And he just does the wee
Oh,
line
it's-
from the film.
And he says the line.
Yeah.
He's like, "It'll stabilize."
Yeah.
It's worth watch.
Great way camera.
I don't want to say too much about this film because I feel like either you've seen it or you have a bias that I'm not going to break through.
That doesn't matter. I don't really care.
Spider-Man 3 is the one where I have more interesting opinions on it.
Yes, I agree. I think that's
Because
why.
when Spider-Man 3 succeeds, I think it's in what it does well. I think it does the best out of the series. And what it does badly, it ruins the film.
So we move on
So
to 3?
let's start out. Yeah, I think
No,
what's this
you
2?
start,
There's
yeah.
not ever 2's been talked to death, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
I
don't
feel
want to.
so. Well, 3 as well, to be fair, but go on.
Well, 3 has, but I think 3's been torn apart too much. I
Yeah.
also think it's been defended too much.
Yeah. Go on.
When it is a bad film with some good ideas in it.
Hmm.
So, alright, so I'd say this film it's nothing to do with Emo Peter. It's nothing to do with Venom. Well, not directly, but it's nothing to do with the dance. It's nothing to do with the strut down the street. It's nothing to do with backhanding Mary Jane. It's pacing. Because if they fleshed out any of those enough, it could be pretty good.
Yeah.
And like, I know I enjoy Emo Peter. And I actually do like the explanation that if you asked this, like, because Peter is not cool in any of these films, like, at all.
He thinks
He's
that's
not the
cool.
Andrew Garfield skater boy.
Yeah.
He's not the kind of lovable nerd Tom Holland.
Yeah.
He is honestly that weird guy in school you wouldn't have chatted to because he was a weirdo.
Yeah.
And I do quite like that. I enjoy it as an interpretation of Peter Parker because in the comics he has been that.
Yeah.
And he also has been kind of cool and stuff. They've been making these comics for like 50 years.
Yeah.
So I always hate when people are like, "That's the most comic accurate." It's like, wonder why they're all kind of based on different adaptations. Like Andrews is very based on the Ultimate Comics. Maguire's is very based on the original kind of lineup of Spider-Man comics, and Holland's is kind of an amalgamation of everything. Fuck, I'm gonna go on a wee sidebar quick. I'm gonna get this done quick. Can people stop saying that one of them is best because Stan Lee said that's how they were supposed to be? Because he has said that about every single casting
Of
because
every...
it's called marketing.
Yeah. Well,
If
he said his favorite interpretation, and people still put this as his favorite interpretation of any character ever. He says the perfect guy who was cast as one of my characters was Michael Chiklis as the Thing.
That's pretty good, actually. He probably was quite accurate.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good. But I'm just like, yeah, but that was in like 2004 or 5 or something, like, you know.
Yeah. Like, he said Tobey Maguire was the perfect choice. He said Andrew Garfield was the perfect choice.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the same about Tom Holland. It is not an opinion we can go on.
Robert Downey Jr. said the same
They have said it
about every single.
about
Yeah.
everyone.
Hmm.
And of course, the only true perfect casting Marvel has ever done is Hugh Jackman. Well, not even. It's Patrick Stewart's Professor X, because technically Hugh Jackman was too tall.
Yeah. That's true.
We just need to stop worrying about those kind of ideas of perfect casting and
Well,
adaptations to an extent.
And let's not forget J.K. Simmons.
Fuck, how could I forget?
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned it yet.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's anything that needs to be said about him.
Yes, say no more.
There's a reason, he wasn't, because people forget, Far From Home wasn't the first time he reprised the role.
Wasn't that?
He played J. Jonah Jameson in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Did he?
I think he did. I think. He played him somewhere.
I love.
I know
he played. He played him in this. I think it went from very confident to not really
Can we Google
sure.
it? Can we Google it so I can prove myself?
What Ultimate Spider-Man?
Google Ultimate Spider-Man J.K. Simmons. I'm fairly fucking certain he reprised the role in it. He reprised it in something.
Yeah, he did.
In between.
He did.
In Ultimate
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
You're right.
Okay, I was right. As soon as I said it, I was not confident enough in it. I was right though.
Yes. You're
So
right.
like, there's a reason they wanted him in that.
Mm.
I
Well, he's
can't
become
remember.
synonymous with it.
There's never any rumors of him playing an Amazing Spider-Man. I know some people wanted him, like fans wanted him. They're like, please, if you bring anyone back, just bring him back.
Yeah.
I think Hugh Laurie was rumored at one point for that film.
Really? That's
I will-
interesting.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Again,
there
not
was
really a fact.
there were so you have to remember the Amazing Spider-Man films had so many rumors about casting
Yeah, that's
and
very
different
true.
films and things that it got horribly muddled. And also my brothers used to fuck with me because I was a gullible kid. So like such things as I remember one thing my brother once said is they were going to get Chris O'Dowd to play Craven.
Oh yeah.
I
Ruby
cannot
told
tell
me.
you if that is true.
Ruby told me that.
I was like, I don't know if that's true or if that's just older
I don't
siblings
think that's true.
trying to
I don't
fuck with
think
you.
that's true.
Well, you didn't have older siblings, so you can't relate.
It's a good point,
Um,
but I could. Nah, how? What's going on? Craven.
Anyway, let's move on.
Craven, Adam.
He had curly hair.
Hi, but Jesus.
Anyway,
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Well, so yeah,
I would
J.K.
love
Simmons is
that
perfect.
film. Craven. No, but it's Craven's Last Hunt. That's Chris O'Dowd's Craven.
but is he acting like Craven in the comics, or
No,
is
he's
he just
acting like
Chris
himself.
O'Dowd?
He's just acting like
All right.
himself.
It's like, it's just I'm imagining a film where it's like Kingpin comes up to Craven. It's like, I want you to hunt the spider. It's like, fuck, do I actually have to? Like,
yeah.
that sounds like a lot of effort, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that'll be brilliant.
Anyway, Spider-Man 3. Yeah, it's just a badly paced film. You can have multiple villains if you pay attention to them.
Well, I think this is the point where
I personally think
where like some of the CG did look bad. Were they overly
CG
used it?
I think the CG looks phenomenal in Spider-Man 3.
No, I just feel when it's all the buildings in the background when the opening fight between Harry and Peter. It's very
Okay,
CG.
no, that scene. The only reason they didn't have faces figured out at that point. To be fair.
No, I'm not even talking about the faces. I'm talking about the buildings look bad.
Yeah, I think they were trying to make it look too fast or something. But the Sandman creation scene looks great. The scene when he
my favorite scene sequence in the entire trilogy, probably in all superhero films.
Oh, it's phenomenal. They worked on it for like 4 years.
Oh,
it was
paid
from
off,
Spider-Man 2. They were working on it. A great scene. When Spider-Man saves Gwen through the buildings, that looks really good. When he fights Sandman in the truck, the final fight, it actually all looks really good. Apart from the chase scene.
Yeah.
The fight in the sewer looks really good, where he's like pushing Sandman's face against the.
I think Venom looks bad
train.
in some parts. Like he does
Venom
look
looks
alright
bad because he's a bad.
sometimes.
Venom looks bad because he's a bad design.
It's a bad design because we've talked about this before. It's like because especially with like even when they made the Spider-Man, or like we were talking about the Lizard, and I was like, it is good CG, but it's just about it is over. You have to remember.
I want to
is
get
it
to that
bad
when
CG
we. I
or
want to get to that
design?
when we.
Oh
I
yeah,
want to get to
yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man.
I think there's just that.
Well, I
misconception.
understand a point to the design because it was supposed to reflect. He was supposed to be the dark reflection of Peter.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we already did that much better in
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Something I always wish they did is people shit on Topher Grace. I actually love him as the counterpart of Peter Parker
Mm.
because he is
'Cause he's-
completely
yeah.
Peter Parker's opposite.
Yeah, in every
He's not a
way.
dark reflection of Peter. He is
Well, if you look
Peter.
at their
He's the equivalent of
faces-
he's Peter's rival.
Yeah. But if you look at
And
their
that's why it's
faces, they're
perfect.
such similar faces, if you know what I mean, as well.
I know. Well, they have that. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But he's not confident.
Mm.
But Peter thinks he's confident, so Peter fucking hates him. But he's
Yeah.
not. I always wish that
Like, it works for
we
that
had
film.
him from the.
If you know
I
what mean.
wish we had him from the start.
Well, yeah, because you get references to him in the first film. Remember, like, they mentioned Eddie. Eddie Brock
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Whereas I just wish that we could have had him there from the start.
Yeah, and just he's in, like, a couple of scenes and just fucking, you know.
He's
yeah,
in a
I know
couple
what
of
you mean.
scenes, just so we kind of have a knowledge of there's this other guy at the Bugle who Peter's. I think it works really well in Spider-Man
Oh, yeah.
2 as well as an indication of Peter being shat on in life just by them not choosing his shots.
Well, like, I understand why, you know, that didn't happen, because obviously Sam Raimi had no intention of having Venom or Eddie Brock in, you know,
No.
the third one. Like, it was meant to be Sandman and,
It's supposed to be Vulture.
what?
It's supposed to be Vulture originally in Spider-Man 3.
No, I heard it was meant to be Sandman and New Goblin. It was only meant to be them two.
No, I heard it was Vulture and it was going to be Ben Kingsley.
No, that's the fourth
Because
film.
then it was going to be John Malkovich. No, that was going to be John Mal. Was that for the first film?
That was for the fourth film.
No, fourth film was going to be John Malkovich as the Vulture.
Alright, maybe then.
Raimi loved the Vulture,
Yeah.
and he really just wanted to include him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From my understanding now, and then he wanted Vulture, and it might have been New Goblin. I think, I know there's a video a couple years ago that I watched, it was how they should have made Spider-Man 3, and what he did is, he did the fight at the beginning with, he got rid of Sandman, and he made Harry Venom.
Yeah.
He did it that, he came in as the New Goblin at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
He gets horribly injured in that fight. Instead of getting amnesia, he actually gets horribly fucking injured. And then it was going to be, the symbiote was going to be an Oscorp thing. And
Yeah.
the whole idea was that Peter and Harry fight so hard in that first fight scene, they fight into an old Oscorp lab. The symbiote gets on Peter, and then the symbiote gets on Harry, and such and such. And it was basically going to do that. And it was going to follow a similar path to the film and just cut out a lot of the fat. And his idea could have worked, but once again, it's not the film Sam would have wanted to make.
Yeah, he didn't even want Venom. And yeah, I know what you mean, yeah. Yeah. Because I think the one thing that I find very weird with this film is that fucking glider. How did they ruin the glider?
Making it a snowboard?
They give him they give him a fucking snowboard. Like, it looks shit. I don't like it. I know
think
what
if
they were
it-
trying to do. They were trying to be like, oh, it
It fits
you know,
his suit.
Oh, I know what you mean, but I think they're trying to be like, oh, you know, he's evolved to a point. It's like, oh, you know, and it just looks kind of like even cheaper technology than the previous one.
I think it would have looked like absolute shit if he was using Willem Dafoe's suit, though.
I think they should have just done Hobgoblin.
They probably should have done Hobgoblin, admittedly. Well, I remember when I was a kid, though, I thought it looked fucking cool. I wanted that action figure. I got
I
it
was more
for my...
obsessed with Venom.
I got Black Suit Spider-Man, Venom, and New Goblin for my 7th birthday.
I
Or
got
6th birthday?
for
6th birthday? 2007? Yeah, 6th
yeah,
birthday.
6th birthday. Because I remember like that Christmas, I got a Mega Block set because Spider-Man 3 was the first one. Was the first Spider-Man film that Lego didn't get to, you know, do Lego for.
Yeah, that was when I went to Mega Box, I remember,
Yeah.
because I had a set as well, and it was the Black Spider-Man.
Yeah, because it was the construction battle at the end, and you got Spider-Man, but if you dipped him in warm water, he turned into like
Turned
the black
black.
suit. So it's pretty
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Like, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. What were we talking about there? Oh yeah, Spider-Man. It's just a mess of a film, but it has some really good stuff in it.
But I find
Some of
it
the
weird
shots
how
are
it still
excellent.
holds up, even though it was a mess of a film.
So it works within the trilogy, but apart from on a few factors, because it's the first time in that franchise that they were properly planning on having a sequel.
Yeah.
So I guess Harry finding the Goblin did, but that was at the end of the film, and it doesn't really affect Spider-Man 2 as a whole.
No.
Spider-Man 3 it does. Things
well,
like...
you can clearly tell it was just because Willem Dafoe showed up. They're like, oh fuck, why not? Like,
No, I think they were going to do that anyway, because that was quite natural for then
yeah,
Harry
that's
finding out
fair.
Peter was... That was going to happen. But just things like, introducing Gwen Stacy, because they didn't know if Kirsten Dunst wanted to a fourth film. Like, stuff like that. Like, that's the most sequel kind of baiting we've ever... Not sequel baiting, but we've... It's the stuff the Amazing Spider-Man film did, and it's why one of the reasons those films don't work.
Yeah, because they did
where
it in
they're
every
just
film,
so obsessed
and it's so
with setting
close.
up the next thing.
Yeah, instead of just being its own... It's like how like the first Iron Man film works, because it's just a film and it ends, and the only teaser
And Iron Man 2 doesn't.
Yeah, and like the only teaser is like the after credits scene, if you know what I mean. You know.
Yeah. It was a bit of an issue actually we fell into with the MCU, where we almost wanted it to be setting up the next thing too much.
Yeah.
Like, I remember people being disappointed with Guardians 2 because it didn't introduce a new Infinity Stone.
No, I didn't care.
But like, people were like, it didn't really like affect much in the MCU, and it's like, we really... When I think that was just because that was late in the game, building up to the Infinity War, that we kind of had those thoughts. Like, leading up to Infinity War, there was just like the films leading up to Infinity War.
Every
those kind of like last
was
3,
like,
4.
Black Panther.
Those last 3, 4 films.
Yeah.
Those last like 3,
Thor's
4
gonna
films
have
for
it.
Infinity War. We were just like, we are setting up for this, and it was like,
well, it make more
we were
sense
wondering,
to be
like,
in Infinity War, the Soul Stone.
yeah. Well, things like at the end of Thor, when Thor 3, I remember when Thor 3 came out, someone talked before me, like, it's just like, does it set up Infinity War? It's like, it leads right into it. Like, that was what I was concerned about. I was concerned about leading...
Rather than the actual film
into...
itself, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, because I was just... I don't think we didn't really have that until Spider-Man 3, where it felt like they were just setting up the next thing a little bit. Or just preparing. And I think it was like, Gwen Stacy was an unnecessary character.
Well,
There's so many pointless characters.
I think the one
but
thing
also,
that 3 did well was... It ended the trilogy rather than setting up for a new film.
It definitely didn't leave open, which was good.
I think that was the good. That's why
it's not like they ended it with fucking bird wings in the background. Like,
yeah.
Whereas I think it ends quite satisfyingly, which was actually a big concern of mine when the rumors started coming up about a Spider-Verse film. Is because I was actually quite content with how that trilogy is. Because I know some people always wanted another one, and I'm like, if it was going to be good, I would have liked it.
Well, the worst thing is everyone's going to compare it to this film, and it's not a fair comparison whatsoever.
This isn't Spider-Man 4, it's Tom Holland's Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, but not even just that. Everyone's going to compare it to 3 in terms of, because it's the only other Spider-Man film that is the third in the trilogy, if you know what I mean. So that's why the comparisons are even going to appear, like,
It's not
people
fair.
compare the first films of all 3 of these, Spider-Man, and the second films of all 3 of these Spider-Man, but you can't, there's no point. You know what I mean? They're completely different.
I think you can compare the first one.
First,
at least of
enough,
Amazing and not necessarily Homecoming, because that picked up an already established Spider-Man, which was just because we had seen the origin story so many times.
Yeah, which I'm fine with.
Not everyone is, but we'll get into that later. So I'm fine with it, we're moving, but it ends satisfying. I'm okay with how it ended. It could have been better.
Yeah.
But looking at the Amazing Spider-Man films,
kind of came full circle.
Could have been a lot worse. It came full, and it could have been a lot worse.
Yes, yeah.
The fact that there is anything that we enjoy from these films, and I'd say I enjoy 60% of Spider-Man 3.
I really enjoy
40%.
a lot of it. I think there is some parts. The last battle's kind of alright. Like, there are things I like about the last battle, some things I don't like.
I love the last battle. I love the character moments in the last battle.
I do like that.
I think I love the bit where Harry comes in and all, because I think that that's Harry coming full circle.
Yeah.
And I always love the memes. It's like when girls have an argument, it's like, I'm never speaking to that bitch again. 10 minutes after girls have an argument, it's like, I'm never speaking to that bitch again. 10 minutes after lads have an argument, it's like, I never meant to hurt you. I know. And it's them like putting it behind. Which is why I'm on the podcast today.
Because I think a lot of
and that's why I'm on the podcast today. Alex came up to me and we recreated that speech.
Because a lot of the character moments I feel kind of are a lot more prevalent in this film than
Yeah,
even
the
the
Mary Jane and Peter
first,
stuff's probably the best
or
it
the
actually
second.
was.
Yeah,
In terms of her actually being a character
yeah,
and not being fodder, basically being, not eye candy, but basically being an object for Peter to desire.
yeah. Like she has her own
And I
character
think
and
that
she's
actually
dealing
kind
with
of
her own
works
problems
because
and stuff.
she was an object for Peter to desire.
Mm.
And then now that they're actually together and they're realizing that,
Yeah,
oh shit.
yeah,
Because they were both kind of objects to each other until they ended up together.
yeah. Like even Harry's good in this film. I enjoy him, even though he has that
I
weird,
know.
shitty cliche.
What, the wink?
Amnesia.
Oh, the amnesia.
Temporary amnesia.
Oh yeah, he just kind of loses it. And then...
It's just very selective. He just forgot the last two films. That was it. That's all he forgot.
Yeah, because he forgot it. And then you have
Yeah.
my favorite piece of editing in history, where they move it. They alter the scene from earlier in the film when Harry's in hospital and he's getting the flashbacks. Like when they edit, so Peter has the happiest response to Harry's question. It's like, my father, he died, right? And just Peter excitedly going, yeah! Oh, I absolutely love
Just
it.
when you know
And
it's
then-
two different takes.
Well, no, because he says yeah like that to something else in the scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or-
You're right. You're right.
It's
you're
Harry
right.
misremembering
Yeah,
it to
you're
vilify
right,
Peter.
You're right.
At least that's my excuse for it. And then Butler in the end, he's not real.
Yeah.
He's not real.
Even though, well, it's confirmed in the novel.
Well, he wasn't real or was real.
No, there was a ghost in the novel.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Who's also Bill Paxton's dad.
Very nice.
Rest in peace, both of them.
Exactly.
Well,
Rest in peace, a couple of people from this film.
Yeah, right enough.
I mean, Aunt May died, I think, a year or two ago. Uncle Ben's died a couple of years.
Yeah, about 10 years
Okay,
ago.
actually, do you want me to tell you, my biggest complaint about Spider-Man 3 isn't what they did do, but it's one thing that they didn't do, which I am so angry that they didn't. How did they not have a scene where they go back to the car from Spider-Man 2 and Peter takes Ben's hand?
Yeah.
They filmed new scenes with Uncle Ben for Spider-Man 3,
Yeah.
and they didn't film that. They filmed
that
scenes
would've
with him
been-
and that car.
Yeah.
Imagine, when he takes off the black suit. It's all about him taking the black suit, and he takes Uncle Ben's hand. How did they not do it?
Because it would have been, yeah.
Because first film, he doesn't take his hand.
Yeah.
Second film, doesn't take his hand. Third film, he takes his hand, and they wrap up the trilogy with it.
Yeah.
How did they not
I
do
just
it?
They were weird. Yeah, I never saw that.
It really annoys me, because it wouldn't annoy me if they didn't bring him in to film new scenes, especially with the car. With Sam Raimi's car.
Yeah. That's in every one of his films.
Yeah, like how did they not do that scene?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I never saw that.
Because they go back, they do it in the first film and he doesn't. He goes in the second film and
It's
he
all
doesn't.
white in the background.
And the third film they just don't do it.
Yeah.
How'd they not
It
do
would
it?
have been better.
Wouldn't
Well, I
have.
think there's a lot
When
of
he-
things to look at this. You mainly do it with the third one because there's a lot of choices that were made that you can obviously tell was very rushed. And the things that are good are the things that weren't rushed.
First one was 2002, second one was 2005, so that was actually, what,
2004?
2004?
Yeah, and that's
It was
2007.
actually,
This one took 3
it's
years.
about 3
to
years,
make.
it's 3 years between all of them, wasn't
Well, it
it?
was the most expensive movie made at that point. But then every year...
Spider-Man 3?
Yeah, but then again, every year
No, it wasn't.
that got broken.
No, it
Why?
wasn't.
Why?
Well, even if it was, you know what came out same year? At World's End.
Yeah, no, that's
Oh,
what
I
I'm
think
saying.
that was-
That's what I'm saying. But 6 months later, that's what I'm saying. Like, that
No, they were
record
in cinema at the
kept
same time.
Huh?
They were at cinema at the same time.
Were they?
I don't know how I know this because I went to a birthday party where we were supposed to watch Spider-Man 3. I'd already seen this point now.
Oh,
We
right.
we missed the showing of it and we had to see World's End.
Alright. Oh, well, you'd already seen 3.
I'd seen both the films. and
Oh,
I
that's
like
alright.
them.
Well,
I didn't
you'd
really
rather
like
go
World's
see
End that
3
much.
again, I imagine.
I thought World's End was okay. It was just long. We'll get to Pirates maybe someday when the court case gets settled.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
When the reboot happens.
I don't think it'll even be a full reboot. I don't think they'll ever fully reboot that
Nah,
franchise.
nah.
It's not worth it.
But
I,
anyways, just
I
to
think
kind
that's
of
all I
wrap
have
it
to say
all
on
up.
the Raimi trilogy. Do you want to talk about the extras to the franchise quickly?
Well, that's what I was gonna do. Like, I was gonna talk about stuff like the fact that there are two other
Spider-Verse.
edits. All right. I was gonna talk about like the two
Oh,
other
I was gonna.
edits. Like, there's
Oh yeah, well the edits. I
Spider-Man
haven't
2
seen
was 2.
3.5.
Well, I haven't seen 2.1. I've not seen 2.1, and I've not seen the editor's cut of 3. But it's weird the choices they make in both of them, because they take out some good
Yeah.
stuff and take out some bad stuff, obviously, but then they add in stuff, and I'm like, why?
Some good stuff and some bad stuff.
Yeah, because like even in 3 they add in some good stuff, but then they take out some good stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like the
Yeah.
one thing that changed, and the one big thing I actually prefer, is in 3, and it's Harry's redemption arc. They completely change in the editor's cut, because
What do they do with it?
instead of talking to Bernard, the butler, he looks
Yeah.
at an old photo of the three of them from the first film, and that's his reasoning for going. And it's not the fact that he
Same.
finds out the truth about his father. He just wants to help his friends.
Same. Yeah, that is probably better.
It's far better. It's rather than knowing what actually happened, just
The
forgiving.
blade that pierced his body
Yeah, I know.
came from his glider.
Yeah. We still need to
Yeah.
watch Editor's Cut of 3, because there's actually some really funny stuff I'm keeping from you in it.
At some point.
Like,
I need to watch
with
that.
Emo Peter.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, there's one
So,
scene that's changed. Oh.
Will we talk about what the additions to? Well, of
Mhm.
course, I brought up the animated series. I almost wish I brought that up now.
That made more sense then.
The games, second
Friend
one
of
being
Foe.
very iconic. I was just on about
Oh, right,
the
sorry,
actual
the actual
adaptations.
Yeah.
the adaptations. They had most of the cast. They had Willem Dafoe, Tobey Maguire. All three had Tobey Maguire.
Mm-hmm.
And different cast members came in. Second one, yeah, the second game's really good.
Yeah.
Especially for the time.
Yeah.
The other two aren't great.
No.
I've played all of them,
More
so
iconic, if you know what I mean.
Two's very iconic, but it's also still. I think it's still.
PlayStation 2 as well.
Yeah, but it's still very fun to play. Like if you compare how
no.
3 plays to how 2 plays,
It's one of
2
those like
plays
arcade
infinitely
games
better.
where you can just sit down and have fun. You don't need it to kind of
Just sit down for. I wouldn't.
You know.
So I've. Yeah, the story's not the most fun. It's just fun to swing about, and
It's mainly the
That's all you're-
mechanics. So it's the gameplay. That's what people enjoy.
combat is a bit of a mess in the
Yeah.
game. It's just jump and mash
Yeah.
X, or mash square. But yeah, they're fun. Friend or Foe, not a sequel, but uses a lot of the designs from the Raimi films. Because you know you have Willem Dafoe,
not really
not Willem
Venoms,
Dafoe in it, but yeah,
Willem
it's
Dafoe
the
and-
design of Willem Dafoe's Goblin. You have
Yeah.
New Goblin.
Did you say Groblin there?
I must say Goblin. Goblin. Some kind of Dark Arc.
Mm-hmm.
There's not very much to mention. It was just a shitty kids game that used the designs.
It's very cartoony, weirdly enough.
Yeah, it's alright. It's good for the time.
Obviously,
James
Spider-Man
Arnold
musical,
Taylor
which
plays
is an
Spider-Man in it.
adaptation.
So that wasn't an adaptation until it reviewed terribly.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man the musical,
And they were.
music written by
It was after
Bono.
the first film did very well.
Spider-Man the musical didn't debut till 2010 or
No, I know,
2011.
but they were they'd been planned it that long, is what I'm saying. Like, it took
It
8
was-
years to make.
A ridiculous budget.
Yeah.
It was the most expensive musical of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Might still be.
Probably still
be
is,
honest
yeah.
with
I
you.
don't know what could top it.
I wouldn't be surprised. Had an ungodly amount of injuries from them flinging actors off of things without proper harnesses.
Breaking limbs, everything.
So many people broke limbs. So many people got hurt. I think it was Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt did an entire episode where the character of Titus gets a role in the it was a musical about the making of the Spider-Man musical or something.
Right.
And it's just about all these actors playing Spider-Man getting injured.
Yeah.
It's an entire musical about actors playing Spider-Man getting injured. And then yeah, so many people got injured. The music was it was a lot of rewritten U2 songs.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm gonna So I know the story of this musical because Lindsay Ellis did a very good video on it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was Lindsay Ellis. So it started out and it was supposed to be Spider-Man versus Arachnid.
Mm-hmm.
And Arachnid was this spider lady. She had sex with Peter Parker and gave him his powers, I think was the idea behind it. It was really bizarre. And then he fights her, and then there was this big musical number with all these different designs of villains in it. And they had like Carnage, they had all these villains. Some of the designs are pretty funky.
Mm.
And it was terrible.
Mm.
It was apparently one of the worst things people had seen.
Mm.
So they rewrote it, they shut it down, and they reopened it as essentially an adaptation of Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
They took the Green Goblin from that musical number and they just made him the main villain.
Mm-hmm.
Arachnid is still in it, but she just plays like, she comes in, does one musical number and leaves, and it's just like a ballad to like help to like support Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That's literally the point of that scene.
Fuck it, we spent so much on this costume.
They spent the money on the big costume,
That's
so
what
they
I'm
needed to use
saying,
it.
like, yeah.
Like, and it was apparently all over the place where they were just throwing in things where they just had it.
Mm.
Like, I heard there's this one bit where like a massive cardboard cutout of Spider-Man and Green Goblin just flew across the stage, just quite simply because they had it and needed to use it.
Mm.
Even though for the other bits they were flinging actors like on wires and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Green Goblin had a song where he plays the piano.
Mm.
And like the design, and it closed down. It closed down.
It didn't last so long. I think it was only like last
2
like
years,
18
3
months or
years,
something. 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not. Well, the thing is, it cost them a lot of money because they they had to keep shutting it down. But
Yeah.
it cost a lot of money to rent the. It costs a lot of money to rent theaters.
Yeah. That's why you always kind of need a full
because they had to
house.
keep. Because they kept shutting it down.
Mm.
They were still paying for the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Because the theater couldn't really have anything else in it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's all designed around that. Yeah.
More of the story, look up Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark, and it's just very funny.
Mm.
I think last thing I want to talk about continuation, unofficial continuation is Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Because Peter, whatever new girl Parker, I can't remember his name, Jake Johnson.
Jake Johnson, yeah.
His Parker, he was supposed to be played by Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And when you watch the film, you can see how it is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Mm.
But of course now it isn't because of No Way Home.
Mm.
So essentially, what I want to wrap this up by saying, don't ruin my childhood, No Way Home.
Yeah, pretty much, essentially.
Don't ruin my childhood.
Yeah.
Play the music.
Yeah.
Respect the characters.
Yeah.
And don't piss me off.
I mean, I think we will be back to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man duology.
Tasm the Tasmanian Tiger.
Yes. And its failed sequel, I imagine. Or sequels.
And its games, which I played.
Oh, God.
The failed launch of the Sonyverse.
Well, just to clarify,
the relaunch of the Sonyverse.
Well, just to clarify, people, we were meant to do Venom in September. Then October was meant to be Tasm. Then Tom Holland's thing in November. But now I don't know how it's going to work out, so I think we'll be doing Tasm either next month or October. We'll find out anyways. But
whenever a new trailer comes out for No Way Home.
I think that's the best way we could probably do it. We'll do Tasm.
Or whenever any merchandise comes off showing Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. But as always, thank you for listening. Thank you, Buzzsprout, for hosting. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at State Podcast. We post reels and clips from the show, and little weird shit every once in a while, I imagine. But yeah, we'll be back next week as usual.